it's not a trend. It has been around as long and longer than those things already.
This year at PerformX, the Gym Owners Forum took their community on the road, and we actually hosted our very own networking community event right in the heart of the show. Now, the conversations that we were having on the day were with doctors, gym owners, industry experts, and suppliers, all with the ultimate goal of educating, supporting, and uplifting the industry. Now, over the weeks following PerformX, what we'll do so that you guys don't miss out is be sharing those conversations that we had with those people on the stage. So without further ado, let's jump right into it.
Simon, welcome to the Gym Owners Forum stand at PerformX. Thank you so much for joining us.
Tom, pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for the time.
So, talk today is covering GLP-1s. I'd like just a little bit before we dive into it. Can you give us a little bit of context about why specifically you wanted to talk about it today? I know that you're working with Dr. Lou, and yeah, dive right into it. Tell us about it.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, it's the hottest topic in fitness right now. Right, there's been a number of big stage discussions about it today, and it's something that's been on our radar for years, if we're being honest. I think it's gained a lot of momentum over the past few months, but it's been years that we've been having conversations with some personal trainers and some gym owners about this, because they've been aware of members using it. Members have been speaking about using it to them, and in the last 18 months to 12 months it has really accelerated, and because we operate in the body composition world, there was a lot of outreach to us about how our technology can help support the members and the gym owners in being a bit more knowledgeable about this subject. So I am not an expert and I am not a doctor, so what we do is we go and find those experts and find those doctors, and yeah, we then have done quite a lot of research and spoken to a lot of gym owners about GLP-1 with Dr. Lou Atkinson, and my background is sports science, so I have some physiological knowledge, but I am not a behavior change specialist. I am not a medical professional, and that's, I think, as an individual and as a brand with Tanita, we want that expert knowledge to come from experts and not from people who think they know what they're talking about.
I think, to be honest, it's a great example of why we're doing this, as well as actually you don't have to have the knowledge, you just have to have someone that does along for the ride. And you kind of answered the next question within that I had, but why is GLP-1 usage not like a short-term spike? Why is it going to be kind of a long-term thing that's here to stay?
Well, I think ultimately because it works. That's the simple fact. It works, and it's easy is the wrong word. Definitely easy is the wrong word. It's not an easy thing for someone to do. There's a big misconception about it being the easy route. But if you've worked with people who are taking the medication, or you personally know people who are taking the medication, it can be quite a tough ordeal on some people. So it's definitely not easy, but it doesn't involve crash dieting. It doesn't involve, massive life changes. And it's relatively accessible, and it's a medication, so it's not going anywhere. It's only getting more accessible.
Did gym owners and people in the industry kind of understand the trajectory it's having? Is there a lack of well, I know you touched on the lack of knowledge. What is going to be the impact on people's health long term, and why does that actually matter for gym owners to start understanding?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lack of knowledge on what GLP-1 is and what the physiological impacts are on that individual. And also that, from a pharmaceutical point of view, this is not a short-term fix. But if I can speak personally, it should be a relatively short-term fix. It should be something that helps facilitate a healthier lifestyle and a healthier body. It shouldn't be a lifetime medication. For some people, it can be a lifetime medication. For some people where obesity is a physiological struggle, then this is a wonder drug to help those people live a healthier life. But the mass use is not that, and the mass use needs to be supported and then weaned off into a healthier lifestyle. And that's where, as a fitness industry, as gym owners, I think we have the most important role.
Yeah, I mean, not to get all topical and on trends, but I think you look at like AI usage, and ChatGPT is a very basic example of that. It's a really great tool when it's used in conjunction with human edits, and actually it's not just relied on as the only solution. And I think convenience, in the same way with GLP-1s, convenience isn't always a good thing necessarily, and it does require work and hard effort on top of it. You look at trends in the past, like wearables, like HIIT classes, high rocks, all that kind of stuff. What makes GLP-1s fundamentally different to those trends, and why does it require so much more care?
Yeah, well, I think it's not a trend. It has been around as long and longer than those things already.
That was news to me.
Yeah, it's just become much more accessible in the last 12 months or so. I think when you look at trends in the fitness industry, trends are often, things that become popular for a short time, and then something replaces it that sort of fills that gap. And GLP-1 as it exists today will look different in 12 months and 24 months and 36 months. It will look different to what it looks today. So the trend might change, but the medication, the intervention will certainly stay, and members will continue to use it, and that number will increase as it becomes, and something you can take orally and not via injection, for example. So, yeah, it's really important that we become more knowledgeable about it and don't just go, it'll go away. It'll go away.
I won't test your doctor skills anymore. Don't worry. I'll move on to what's relevant to us, the Gym Owners Forum. Why are GLP-1s? Well, why are independent gyms so perfectly positioned over things like low-cost budget gyms and your larger scale facilities? Why are they so well placed to deal with people that are on and using GLP-1s?
Yeah, I think there's a number of reasons. I think ultimately we see independent gyms as often either the heart of their community or really close to their community, and that isn't the case with more commercial operators. It isn't. They provide a service. I think independent gyms really do provide a place for community when they do that really well. They often, not exclusively, but more than often, have a really human approach as well. There's somebody on the reception desk, for example. They know the members by their name. They know their members on a personal level. You're not just scanning in, scanning out, and never speaking to anybody. So when people need that support and they need a bit of TLC to make an intervention successful, I think it's the independent gym community that can really, really step up and make that impact.
It was the talk that we had with Carl Bickley earlier, and I think the general consensus from all the talks that we've had is that aesthetics isn't really a thing anymore, and actually the shift towards that health and actually caring and looking after our members and their longevity is the way that the industry's going. And as you say, it is that community that kind of really positions gyms so well. So no, I completely agree with that. In terms of the combination of using both a dual approach, let's say, what can independent gyms offer on top of the medication that, apart from the community, I guess, how does the support benefit people?
Yes, yeah. I think this is where maybe I might not be a clinical expert, but in terms of physiology and how to retain members and how to engage with your members, this is where I definitely have some expert knowledge. Perfect. And I think the most important thing is about messaging. Your members are using GLP-1. How many are telling you they're using GLP-1? Maybe you don't know, but we did in the research we did with Dr. Lou Atkinson, some of the independent gym operators were telling us they think as much as 50% of their membership might be either taking this medication or had taken the medication, and they probably knew about less than 10% of that. So why are people not being forward about it? Because unless they are, you can't support them. So the messaging, I think, is the first thing they have to get right. And the messaging needs to be one of support and help, not like you're not remotely judgmental about why you're taking that. You shouldn't never ever question the why. The why is that person's personal choice. What you need to be doing is going, okay, whatever your why is, here's what we have in place for you.
Yeah, the removal of that stigma. There is actually, I think also jealousy maybe sometimes comes into play with
Absolutely.
it. Because, yeah, I mean, I definitely won't dive too much into that because I'll definitely say something. But I think based on what you're seeing with how GLP-1 members behave in the gym, how does that differ from traditional just like weight loss members?
Yeah, I think there's two. We need to think about GLP-1 members in two categories. I think existing members and potential new members. And for existing members, there is a real risk of losing that member, because what we do know from people who take GLP-1 medication is that the side effects can be quite significant. We mentioned earlier, it's definitely not the easy option. If you think it's an easy option for somebody, you need to do a little bit more research into what it does and the impact it can have on you physiologically. People do lose muscle mass. They feel tired. There's nausea. There can be insomnia. There can be, gastric issues, and none of those things really want to make you work out. So what happens then is people stop going to the gym because they were engaged in the gym maybe, and then they start taking the GLP-1 medication, and then they stop because of the side effects, not because of they don't want to train and exercise, but because they physically feel as though they can't. And then the added issue there is it's quite expensive. So if they've stopped coming to you as a facility provider, and suddenly they're looking at the next subscription of medication that is quite expensive, okay, well, I don't go to the gym anymore. I'll cancel that gym membership. So I think there's a risk in current members of, if they don't get the support, if they don't feel that there is, when those symptoms happen, when I feel like I don't want to go to the gym, I don't want to train, I'm tired, okay, well, what has the gym got in place for me? If they don't feel that, there's a risk of losing them. But also in the community, there is a lot of people who maybe don't know or are not aware of the potential impact of muscle mass loss with GLP-1, or the fact that if you train and you do resistance exercise whilst taking it, then it has a better effect and potentially a quicker effect. Are you communicating to those people who maybe not members already, who could become members? So I think if I was a gym operator now, you're looking at those two distinct characteristics of current members and the at risk, how do we support them, but also how do we communicate to people who could be members, because there's a big opportunity there.
It was something like in 2025, 65% of members that left the gym left because of health conditions. I think it might have been 85. Really good on stats, obviously, which is helpful. But that's a massive number when you think about it. And actually, with these kind of hidden conditions where people are taking this medication, it can be a worry for gym owners, and it's something that they should definitely consider. So I'm a gym owner now, let's say, that wants to start this journey of like making a welcoming and inclusive community where we can help people. Who would you suggest that we kind of start with to go to? Similar to how you've done with Dr. Lou, who are the people that you can kind of reach out to start this journey?
Yeah, well, I think firstly, that number is embarrassing for the fitness industry, right? We're the place that people come to get healthier, but we lose that many people due to health related
and just
things.
Go, okay, no worries.
Yeah, that's thrown me off our plan a little bit, because I did genuinely shocked by that number. We need to do something about that number. Podcast number 2 should be to discuss that number.
Keep an eye out.
In more detail. But I think, as an independent operator, the reason that I personally and Tanita were really keen to try to facilitate like a framework of support around this was because, we know independent gym operators, it's your party. And sometimes you have lots of guests and support at that party, and sometimes all the planning is down to you. And now I think there's nothing wrong with looking for help and support, right? We should all be trying to improve our knowledge base. And now I think we're looking at putting this framework together with Dr. Wilkinson, about how to operate in this GLP-1 world, how to support members through this process, how to, engage with potential new members. So as Tanita or as Dr. Lou individually, I think that's a nice first point to reach out. But there's a number of people now in the fitness industry, a number of providers, either education providers or general knowledge bases like UK Active, who are starting to put together some accessible material for gym owners. Because what I was seeing 6 months ago was supportive content was coming through, but you kind of need to be a doctor to understand it, and as a gym owner, you've got 1,000 things to do. Deciphering this 47-page document about how to engage with and support people with GLP-1 medication wasn't practical. There is now some more practical, digestible information coming through. And, from a personal point of view, but as Tanita in the UK, we're happy to roadmap and to facilitate gym owners into those right directions. We might not have the answer, but we can bring people together who can support you with the answer.
I think it's clear as gym owners, like, time is one of the most valuable assets that they have, and they don't have much of it. So yeah, firstly, I do think it's great kind of making it way more accessible. What's the kind of most important first step when implementing these kind of measures into the club? Is it training of staff and of educating yourself, I guess? Getting in touch with the community and just outreach and firing that out? Or is it like the measurement and trying to actually track people's health?
Yeah, it has to be an inside-out approach, right? If you don't get the in-house stuff sorted, then as soon as you go out-house and you try and communicate a message or start to health assess people, if you and your staff don't get it, then everything falls down. So for me, you start with your own knowledge. Let me understand as much as I can about this, and then where do my staff need knowledge? Because some of my staff might be more knowledgeable than me about this. So how can we, as a staff, educate ourselves and inform ourselves to the point where we can then start to communicate this to our members and community? And then that messaging is critical. I think in the fitness industry, our messaging in general has got better, but it's still pretty terrible. We're still talking to the 15 to 18% of our members. That's what our communication is. We don't talk to the people we actually need to talk to, and we don't talk in a way that is accessible and engaging to them. So in-house education, knowledge, confidence in talking and dealing to these people. Then make sure you have a message that is engaging, understandable and supportive, because then people will engage with it. There's no point putting this great GLP-1 strength referral longevity program together and then messaging it to the 15% of fitness enthusiasts that you have already. You've got to get your messaging right. And then, that third point is then when people do engage with that message, what have you got in place? And gathering information on that, okay, you've come to us now, or this is day one in your journey. Here is some physiological information. Here is some psychological information, potentially, because it has to be about behavior change, not just physiological change, but behavior and lifestyle change. That's the final piece of the jigsaw. If that's the start of your process, then there could be problems afterwards.
That's fair. I think I'll allow a shameless plug quickly, because I'm interested to know what are the kind of specific metrics that you use from your reports that members get? What are the metrics that gyms should be using to kind of track their journey? Yeah,
sure. So I think if it's GLP-1 focus, we will talk about muscle mass, and we'll talk about the potential loss of muscle mass. And being a sports scientist and a nerd, muscle mass is the thing I always talk about the most, because muscle equals longevity. We can be a healthy weight, but if we don't maintain a healthy muscle mass, then we become frail. And muscle is always the center of the conversations I tend to have. But GLP-1 users are concerned with fat. So you shouldn't ignore this. You shouldn't be preachy about, oh, don't worry about body fat, we're going to focus on muscle. You're looking at compositional change. You're looking at weight health, not weight loss. And I think when you utilize body composition technology, then you can focus on weight health. You can go, oh, look, this is your weight, and this is what makes up the weight. And for you, we need to focus on, and then you're talking about, for GLP-1, it will be fat, it will be visceral fat, and it'll be muscle mass. I think those three metrics initially, if that's all you focused on that first conversation with somebody, particularly if they're not from a gym familiar background, then that's enough in that first conversation. And that can escalate, and that can grow into things like cellular health. There are measurements from body composition like phase angle, which are really good indicators of cellular health. And we know that when you lose weight, you don't necessarily get healthier. And tracking phase angle is a really nice way to show people that they're losing weight and getting healthier at a cellular level. You do that on day one to the person who's never stepped foot in the gym again, they're not stepping foot in the gym day two. So it's about, again, knowledge and understanding of those metrics and knowing which ones to apply to which type of member.
Yeah, I mean, you've touched on it very briefly there, to be honest, but how generally do GLP-1 clients differ from just your regular PT clients? I know it's about kind of finding out what they want, and they all differ anyway, but if you could just touch on that a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it depends on, some of your GLP-1 clients will be your PT clients. You know, it's the use, when we speak to the gym owners in the research we did, the use is so prevalent that your current gym users, your current PT clients are using this medication. So I think they're a slightly different audience because they are, should we say, engaged in the fitness process. They're gym members. They may be members for a long time, and now they're using this new intervention method. But the new intervention method is going to have impacts on the, well-being and feeling and general, activeness or willing to be activeness than it ever has before. So you need to be aware of it, and then as a PT, you can intervene. Okay, you might be feeling a bit off today, you might be feeling a bit lethargic today, but that's normal because you're taking this medication. This is what we're going to do about it. And I think there's that key understanding about those people. But then the people that are not fitness friendly or not fitness experienced, then that's where you really have to be almost not clinical in your approach, but almost don't think like a personal trainer, think like a behavior coach, because you're trying to coach new behaviors into somebody, and that's not common for a personal trainer necessarily.
Does that speak a little bit to the standards of maybe personal training at the moment as well? Is that something that maybe should just be integrated into looking forward as how we improve the standards of personal training and the qualifications that go into it?
I've met lots and lots of personal trainers who know 1,000 exercises and can put together a program for anybody and do not have the slightest clue of how to apply it to an individual. They know every exercise under the sun, but they don't get how to apply it. They don't get how to manipulate it. And when you then go away from exercise and into behavior change, I think, and as any kind of personal trainer, you are always trying to elicit some kind of behavior change, whether that's engagement with you and your process. I had 11, 12 years as a strength and conditioning coach in professional sport, and you've got people literally being paid to listen to you and to follow your training program. They know better. Of course they know better. So you had to, as a strength and conditioning coach in sport, you have to change the behavior of certain athletes. You've got to make them buy into what you're trying to do, and that's same in personal training. If you can't get that individual to buy in to what you're presenting to them, then they're not going to buy into it, and they're not going to be as successful, and they're not going to want to book more sessions. So for me, the psychological part of what the skill set a personal trainer should have is equally as important to that knowledge of exercises.
I think ultimately I think this is probably fair to say, ultimately what gym owners care about is revenue and adding value to the memberships to ultimately increase revenue. How can we use like the metrics that are given from the Tanita scales to our members and peating? How can we combine all that to create a bigger value add for our members and ultimately more revenue for the gym?
Yeah, revenue is, we can try and pretend it's not, right? But if we don't...
Cash is king.
If we don't make money as a gym owner, we don't have a gym to work from. So, yeah, I think revenue is the most important thing. And when you utilize body composition in terms of a service, then it becomes a service that has a value attached to it, you know. And whether you're doing something as standalone as an actual intervention program for people using GLP-1, or whether you're just utilizing body composition in general across your gym, it should be a strategic part of what you do. If it's a strategic part of what you do, then you can either charge for that service or you can increase your prices because you offer a better service. If it's the scale in the corner that people jump on to check their body fat, it's a waste of money.
Yeah, fair. I think so. Looking to kind of create some kind of calls to actions for gym owners. If a gym owner today kind of is listening and just goes, yeah, well, I'm not really sure that I should hop onto it, what's going to be the effect of not doing anything?
I think not doing anything is always the biggest mistake people can make, right? You should always try to do something. You don't get it right 100% of the time, but I think we can touch back into the trends thing. Like if you don't do high rocks, is it going to make or break your business? Potentially not, because high rocks will come and go, you know, at some point in the future. You know, same.
Don't tell the high rocks guys.
Yeah, sorry.
No,
I know.
right.
It won't come and go. It'll evolve into another trend,
100%,
right?
yeah.
It will evolve into another trend, just like Zumba, just like, you know, we could list all those for the next half an hour. We won't, for sure. But with GLP-1, it's going to become it already is part of mainstream life. It's going to become something that is as common as paracetamol for people to access. So the risk is, as a gym owner, if you don't lean into this, if you're not aware of it and building it to whatever degree into your business plan, then there is a risk that, one, you lose a significant amount of members because the gym next door is leaning into it and people therefore see a more supportive service, but also just the professional service you offer. You know, there is an expectation that as a health and fitness professional, we help and support people, you know, to become healthier. And that means you should be knowledgeable about the most common things on the market, and that this is what this is becoming, one of the most common things on the market. So I think if there are gym owners thinking this will come and go, I would encourage them to rethink that attitude and to whatever degree become a little bit more knowledgeable about it. Whether you want to go all in is, you know, maybe that's something you can take your time over a decision, but you should absolutely becoming more knowledgeable and going, hey, look, this is how we can help our existing members. You might not see it as a bring in new members revenue tool, which I think it definitely can be, but you don't have to think of it like that. But your current members are absolutely doing it and will continue to do so. And if they see another brand, another gym looking like a more supportive environment for them because they're taking this, then they'll go there.
I suppose the killer is as well, because it's kind of a hidden thing that people are a bit cautious about sharing. That's going to be, you should hop on it because actually you don't know who's using it. And you're so right. Yeah, it's when I'm guilty of myself a couple months ago when you first hear someone's using GLP-1s, you go, oh my God, really? And now it's just kind of like, oh, okay. Yeah, so it's 100% becoming more common.
Yeah. There's still a stigma attached to it, and maybe there's a stigma will always be attached to it. You know, I have a similar stigma with people who tell me they're on whatever diet. I won't mention any names for legal reasons, but you know, I'm on this diet, and I go, oh, yeah, great, okay. I associate a stigma to that, and you know, and I don't think it will ever go away, but it will become more normal. And I think that's the key thing. As soon as something becomes a normal part of society, if it's not something that, as a health and fitness provider, you're knowledgeable or supportive of, then you miss out.
Everyone's always going to have an opinion, aren't they? And I mean, so general consensus, I think we can all agree we should start to lean in and get involved in some way, shape or form. What does leaning in look like? So in the next 90 days, what does that look like for a gym owner? How should I get started?
Yeah, I think first of all is about knowledge and education. You know, you might already have that knowledge and education. Your staff might already have it. Therefore, step one is done, right? If step one isn't there, become more knowledgeable, become more informed about it. Number two, decide on what you want to do with it. Is it something you want to do to support existing members? Is it something you want to try and do to get new members? You know, commercially, this is a significant opportunity. But is that the first thing you want to do? My recommendation would be, let's get something right with who we know first. So look at your messaging, look at how you can communicate with your current members, who a lot of which will be taking this medication and very few of which will be telling you about it. How can you get a little bit more from them? You know, how can you get more of those people to be open and confident enough to go, yeah, this is what I'm doing. Could you help me a bit more? Could I be more successful with this, with your help? You know, what does that look like? So sort your internal messaging out. And then at that point, the worst case scenario you have is a more supportive, engaging environment for your members. I don't think that's a bad place to be. If you then want to look wider than that, then that's where that messaging becomes to your non-members and to your community.
I think, yeah, it's the way that I would like to see the industry go, and the way I think it is going, is gyms will become that third space where, you know, it's a bit of a cliche now, but they will become that third space where it's mental, physical, like well-being is going to be what the focus of the world is, the focus of the industry is. If gyms get this right and start sort of interacting with people the way that we're kind of suggesting, what will be the kind of long-term impact on society? I mean, that's a big question, but
Podcast number 4.
Yeah, there you go.
I better clear my calendar.
We're getting a series going.
Yes, yeah. No. We get a healthier society, right? I talk about impact a lot. So when we talk to gym owners and to operators, you know, beyond the independent scene, we work with the biggest fitness operators in Europe, and we always talk about impact. You know, that's great. You're going to use our technology for this purpose. But what's the impact? What actual impact is that going to have on your members and on your business? Don't forget your commercials, you know. There has to be impact. And I think if we get this third space bit right, then the impact is both of those things. The impact is that we grow towards a healthier community. So that 15 to 19% gym membership rate increases. You know, it will never increase to 50, 60, 70% because the gym isn't for everybody. You know, you can be healthy and active and not go to the gym. But if the gym is to become that genuine third space, it needs to be used by more than teens percentage of the population. And I think if people see that, it becomes more normal. You know, we now see in the research we do, and I'm sure you guys have the similar studies, that the biggest growth areas in gym memberships are young people and old people. Because old people and longevity and muscle mass and young people are not going to the pub, they're going to the gym. You know, all the data shows that, and we should be excited about that, and we should be encouraged about what that means for the next generation in terms of health for fitness businesses, and the next generation, the health of the next generation in terms of population.
100%. I think talks like this and events like this, like it kind of shows that the future is bright, and I think the more that we kind of collaborate, educate and support each other, the more this industry is going to accelerate and be taken seriously, because I think that is a real thing that we need to kind of start doing together.
Yeah, that's absolutely the key thing.
Simon, thank you so much. That was great.
No, it's our pleasure. Thank you.
That is all for this episode of the PerformX edition of the Gym Owners Forum podcast. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I thoroughly enjoyed all of the conversations that I had from the 2 days of the show. Would highly recommend anyone to check out PerformX next year and just other industry events in the UK. If you enjoyed the episode and you want more like it, head to YouTube or anywhere you can get podcasts and look for the Gym Owners Forum podcast. If you want some more quick fire and actionable tips, head to our socials where we're posting regularly about insights and just general tools and things we find from the industry right there directly to you. And if you just want to get in touch, reach out to us, DM us, email us, go to our website, reach out, and we're always happy to have a chat and a consultation on how we can help. With that said, see you on the next episode.